Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Yeah, I feel like I know you so much better now that I know your fun fact.
Well, and I mean it. Please stop by and
Yeah.
get your tips. It's a big event, so
I didn't realise that you were such an Oktoberfest expert.
I am.
Yeah, and quick note about my fun fact. I ummed and ahed about putting that there because I think maybe that shouldn't be a big deal in this day and age and we should normalise that kind of thing. But but it is, for the time being, still fun. And it is very nerve-wracking getting down on one knee in a public place. Almost as nerve-wracking as playing the guitar on stage, I think. So yeah, definitely a vulnerable moment.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for having us, and thanks so much, Catherine, for joining us. I'm super excited to have you on stage. Dynamic Yield has been working with the Warehouse Group for many years now, actually.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years.
Yeah, and your team has won several personalization awards, and our team loves working with your team.
Yeah.
Can you maybe share a little bit about the Warehouse Group and your role within it?
So the Warehouse Group has 3 key brands in the stable. So we've got the Warehouse, which is a discount retailer, and then we've got a subsidiary called the Warehouse Stationery, which is a smaller brand, and we've also got Noel Leeming, which is an electronics and appliance brand. So we work in an agile structure, and we've worked like that for the past 4 years, which is why I'll use terms like chapter to describe a team. In our chapter, we're all digital specialists, and we've got a number of different craft types. We've got digital trade, UX, MarTech, analytics, e-commerce operations, all in the same team. So there's about 30 of us across the brands, but we work very collaboratively. So yeah, it's a great place to work.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I think the retail market's been going through a lot of changes over the last few years.
Yeah, it has.
I think specifically in the last few months, a lot of retailers, have been facing quite a challenging market.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from you, Catherine, how the Warehouse Group, as the largest retailer in New Zealand, is dealing with this challenging condition.
Yeah, it has been really challenging, and I think the sentiment is that it's been really challenging in Australia as well. But in New Zealand, very challenging for the past few years. So we've been in recession since the end of last year. We've seen some really, really high rates of inflation. I think we got up past 7%, and don't quote me on this, but I believe our target's 3%, just to put it into some context. And sadly, unemployment is rising. So there's been a lot of sort of redundancy type activity and restructuring going on. And it's really difficult. And it's really difficult for our customers, particularly our customers for the warehouse. They were already really price sensitive before the recession. So the pressure can be really, really real for them. And it just makes our job a lot more difficult. It's harder for us to convert our customers. There's just an added layer of challenge that there perhaps hasn't been in the past. But we do have some approaches that we can use to start to tackle that. Sorry, I haven't been clicking.
Yeah, I think you need to click once more.
Okay, so with the economic challenges that we have, what we've seen is that our customers are a lot more price sensitive than they have been in the past. And the journey that they go on to convert is a lot longer than it has been in the past. Our approaches to that, we've obviously got promotion, which we can use. We can use that sparingly. The reason that we need to use that sparingly is because for the warehouse at least, we're actually an everyday low price retailer, and if we want to stay true to that strategy, then we have to be very careful of how we use promotion, and obviously it impacts margin and then further down the path EBIT. So it has its place, but we need to just be really careful about when we apply it. We have a brand-wide strategy around value, which we've kicked off to really focus at product and price, because I think that all of this amazing CX work that we do is great, but without getting the fundamentals of retail right, it's going to make it very, very challenging to win. So we're focusing on that as a business to make sure that we're always winning there. We have our membership program, and that helps support our First Data collection methods, because obviously that's a lot more important than it has been in the past now that we don't have access to third-party data anymore. And we've also got an acknowledgement that our digital assets are used a lot more frequently now for omni-channel customers. The way that, for example, an in-store customer might use our app, we're seeing that change, and so we can put a lot more effort into designing experiences with that in mind. And then, of course, personalisation and relevance plays a massive, massive part in our approach to all of this.
Yeah, I'd love to deep dive a little bit into the personalisation relevancy strategy. And I know you brought a couple of examples to share with the audience. So I'd love to hear how you leveraged at the Warehouse Group personalisation to really optimise customer experience.
Well, I do have a few examples. So this is our homepage on the Warehouse. And we've spent quite a lot of time looking at how we can make a really personalised experience for customers. And the last time that we have done some testing, which has been reasonably recently, we've found that our personalised version versus a non-personalised version has a click-through rate increase of about 13% and club sign-up or login increase of about 15%, and overall a conversion rate lift. So in that example, you can see over to the right, that's the desktop view above the fold. All of those offer tiles that you can see are driven by popularity. So we have the capacity to load about 20 offer tiles into dynamic yield, which are presented to the audience and then refined based on customer click-through. In that example there, we've pinned that top left-hand larger offer tile due to a business priority, but the rest of them are ranked by popularity. You can see the club detail there further down the page. Obviously, we want our customers to be logged in so that we know them even better. And then I've zoomed in on one of the more simple executions. It's called a dynamic header. And you can see that we've got links through to some subcategories or level 2 categories based on category affinity. So that's one of the first executions that we actually put live with dynamic yield, and it's been really, really effective. And it's just testament to, sometimes the more simple executions can actually be the more effective. So that's our homepage. The second example I've got is on product recommendations, and product recommendations again are reasonably straightforward and simple execution. They, for the Warehouse, are actually delivering 12% of total online revenue if you use the direct attribution, and if you apply an indirect attribution model, it's a lot higher than that. So these particular examples, the one up in the top right-hand corner is on the Warehouse, and what we're doing is pulling product that's promoted into a pre-existing template that is got really deal-orientated creative. So we're using a product feed, and where product is flagged as being on promotion, it's pulling into the template. So that's quite effective. And then down on the left-hand corner, you can see our similar execution for Noel Leeming. So that's really appealing to those price-sensitive customers, because the Noel Leeming customers are also price-sensitive at the moment. Seeing a lot more sort of spikiness in their behaviour. We really need those sort of major trade events and a lot of promotion to keep them converting at a high rate. This example is a really good one highlighting search. So up the top of that example there, you can see that we've pulled some popular search terms into a visual component. Search is obviously really well used on our site, like it is on most. So that just helps get the customer to what they're looking for a lot faster. And then below that, you can see a product recommendation slider, and that's based on recent browse behaviour. So in that example, I'd been looking for a new electric toothbrush. So it's presenting me products that might be relevant to that. And then underneath that, categories related to that search. So it knows I'm in the market for a personal grooming type product. So I'm being served hair dryers, hairstylers, women's shaving, and oral care. So that's another really simple yet effective execution. And This one is one of my more favourite ones. And what I love about this execution is that it's combining a few different platforms. So we've got our marketing platform and Dynamic Yield, and we're also using our CDP to create audiences here. So this is a spin to win campaign. In this particular example, what we're doing is targeting customers that are in-store only shoppers, and we're trying to get them to convert to being omni-channel customers, because over the long term, omni-channel customers are more valuable to us. So a customer receives the email in the left-hand corner or a push notification, and they're driven to a web page to spin the wheel. And because we know they're super price sensitive at the moment, they have a very good opportunity to win a small discount, which they can then apply on the site. So where Dynamic Yield comes into this is obviously all of our customers aren't opted into email communications, so we have the opportunity to target them using banners on the site. So it's just a really nice way that all three platforms that we work with are playing together. And that email achieved a click-through rate of 2 times our average, and we had a redemption rate of 6%, which maybe doesn't sound like much, but when you think about the fact that those customers had never been online customers, it is actually pretty good.
Thanks so much for sharing these examples. I know the team is continuously busy coming up with new ideas. What's the next priority for you when it comes to your personalization roadmap?
So the initiatives that we're focusing on are ones that help us deliver efficiency and automation in teams that are becoming smaller. That's becoming increasingly important. And also initiatives that help us to achieve consistency across channels. So what I'm thinking of is really the gap that we have at the moment between our app and web experiences. We've always been a little bit further ahead with what we're doing on web than we are on app. We've had a few technical blockers there which we're trying to resolve so that we can be super consistent. And then we have our CDP, which is reasonably new to us, and we've probably just scratched the surface there. There's a whole lot of opportunities, so that's the third pillar. So everything that we're doing is kind of fitting into those three. I've included an example there of something called dynamic tiles, which is something that we're working on at the moment. And this has the potential to really reduce a lot of the creative effort that goes into creating this kind of thing. So we're pulling an image which represents the category discount and the text and offer from a feed and pulling it into an existing template again. So that is going to save us a lot of time when we kick it off. So one more way that we're automating things.
Awesome. So I know personalization can open up a lot of opportunities, but it also can be a bit daunting at the beginning to understand where to start, how to grow, and how to scale from there.
It can be.
What's your advice for teams in the audience that maybe just get started with personalization or looking to scale a program?
So I think the most important thing is to find yourself a really good partner, one that is willing to work really closely with you and head into the trenches with you. If you can find a partner that's got a really good service model, you'll find that things like geographical separation aren't the issue that you perhaps think they might be when you get started. I think we're a really good testament to that because obviously we're in New Zealand and your team is very global. So that's probably the first thing. I think the second thing is just start somewhere, and as you saw by some of those examples, some of those are very, very simple. That header recommendation example was a really good one. If you can execute something like that straight off the bat and start adding value and then just test and learn and take those learnings and making sure that you're sharing them with your stakeholders to take them on the journey and prove out the value, that'd be my recommendation. And in my own case, in an agile structure, we've got a platform to do that through the agile rituals that we have. So we work on 3-week sprints, and then at the end of that sprint we have a sprint review which we invite our stakeholders to, where we can share some of the work that we've been doing and some of the learnings that we've had from that. So that's a really good platform for us. And then know your customer is number 4. And if you don't have a CDP, you should find a tool that has really great logic, because you can lean on that to drive your executions.
Wonderful. As mentioned before, a lot of, I think, businesses and teams have been going through quite some uncertainty over the last few years.
Yeah.
How do you keep your team adaptable to this uncertainty and quick changes that we're seeing?
Yeah, it has been really difficult, not just for our customers, but for our team. And as a chapter lead, people and team is a really big part of our role. And so we're very, very conscious that the kind of environment that we're in can have impact on them personally as well. They're working in leaner teams because the opportunity to backfill roles as they've become vacant hasn't always been an option. There's a lot of uncertainty. They might be facing their own financial pressures. And sometimes it can feel, and I mean, I speak for myself as well, like the effort that you're putting into things is kind of going like that, and the returns are kind of going like that. So it's very, very hard for them as well. So we've adopted this concept called pockets of magic, and we borrowed that from a man called Simon Sinek, who you might be familiar with, and if not, you can look him up. And it really comes back to focusing on what you can control in an environment that feels like it can't really be controlled. And what we believe that we can control is our positive culture, our capability, and our ability to innovate. The culture that we want to create is one of trust and openness and realistic optimism. And our team are very, very focused on their capability. Learning and ongoing learning is really important to them. And our ability to innovate, I think innovation can sometimes feel like it means new and shiny, and that's not always the case. Sometimes innovation means working harder with what you've got or finding new ways to tackle problems. So to create our pocket of magic, we are just constantly coming back to that. We're doubling down on those 3 pillars, and our intention is to create our own pocket of magic, and then to diffuse that through our business, through our interactions, and indirectly with our customers as well. So that's our approach.
Wonderful.
They're an amazing team, and I think I've got a lot to be grateful for. If they're listening, thanks guys. Those executions are awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for joining us and sharing these insights.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I think we have time for one question from the audience.
Can we make it an easy one? And then I'll answer the curlier ones one-on-one after.
Does anyone have a question? I know we were doing a Slido, but we're short on time. Does anyone want to throw a question?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
You talked about some of your objectives, your upcoming objectives in personalisation. How did you decide on those objectives?
I think there's a lot of case studies around personalisation, and a lot of the inspiration probably came from people who had been there before. It really doesn't take much to get a number of case studies from all over the world, actually. I feel like we were probably one of the front runners in New Zealand, but outside of New Zealand, there were companies personalising for quite some time, wasn't there?
Yeah, so our team works with hundreds of brands globally, and they do have obviously, case studies and use cases they kind of best in breed in each industry. But we also have methodologies and frameworks that actually help you to understand what's kind of the best place to start and then how you scale from there. I think that's very important when it comes to personalization strategy, because in the end, you can personalize and optimize anything. Like any digital pixel on your assets can be optimized and personalized, but does it really drive the value, and is it really an efficient way to do that? So our team has developed really a framework around that to help you kind of grow with your strategy. So I hope that answered the question. But if there are any more questions, we're out here all day with the Dynamic Yield booth, so please stop by if you have any questions, or if you'd love to learn more about Dynamic Yield and how it can help your personalization and customer experience. Thank you so much, Catherine.
No worries. Thanks for having me.